Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name's Amy Frearson. I'm editor-at-large for Dezeen, and I'm here to welcome you to our talk today about how to design sustainably with water for well-being. And this talk was produced in partnership with Kohler. I'm joined today by Bausá Martínez from Zaha Hadid Architects, Woon from Banyan Tree, and Kohler's Ratish Namboothiry. And so I'd like to say hi to everyone. Welcome to the talk.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Amy.
And it'd be great, guys, if just to sort of get things started, if you could all just introduce yourselves to our audience, tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're calling from today, and where you come from. So, Carlos, why don't you begin?
Hi, Amy. I'm Carlos. I'm the sustainability team lead and from Zaha Hadid Architects, and I'm here located in London right now, same as you. And we'll go through later some examples of things that we're doing here in the company that are connecting water with sustainability. And my background is architecture, but I specialize in computational design and also in topics that are connected to sustainability and environmental simulation. And that's very much from my side.
Great. Thank you so much. Woon, go ahead.
Hi. I'm Woon. I'm from Banyan Tree Hotels and Resorts. I'm the Executive Director of Wellbeing for the group. So what I do is I work with my team to champion the development of well-being, not just for our guests, but also our associates. This year, we're pushing real big on well-being with both sustainability and well-being at the core of our push forward for the next 10 to 20 years.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Ratish, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, folks. My name is Ratish Namboothiry. I'm the Director of Innovation for Good and Environmental Sustainability at Kohler Company. So I lead the environmental sustainability strategy for the enterprise. And I also have the privilege of leading a startup business within Kohler called Innovation for Good, which I'll talk to you a little bit about in a little bit. And then I am calling in from our headquarters here in Kohler, Wisconsin in North America. So looking forward to talking to you guys.
Looking forward to hearing more from you in just a moment. Thank you so much. So to kick things off, everyone's going to give a bit of a short presentation and give us a bit of a flavor of some of the work they've been doing on water, wellness, sustainability in this area. Carlos is going to go first. Carlos, take it away.
Sure. Can I see my screen now? Okay, can you see my screen now? Yes, okay. Well, thank you for having me here. So I'm gonna go I'm gonna show some examples of how we are dealing with water in a sustainable way, and also how we're using water as an inspiration. So I think Zaha has always been has been using water as a source of inspiration for creating dynamic shapes and fluid geometries. Conservation and creative use of water are central within our work, integrating design and innovation with sustainable solutions that preserve, harvest, and recycle water to avoid waste. I will show next a selection of projects classified by size and complexity, where water played a crucial role in different ways. So starting from the product design area, this image shows the liquid glacial table, a piece of furniture that Zaha Hadid designed to explore the use of advanced computational modeling software combined with digital fabrication techniques to achieve unique pieces that resemble water maze. On the other hand, water erosion is something that we also have used as a source of inspiration. For instance, the Roca Gallery was conceived as a rock eroded over the years. This concept was conceived from the storefront of the London Gallery. Its shape makes us feel like if we were looking at the interior of a cavern that has been sculpted over the centuries. As you can see, the interiors have multiple and beautiful feature shapes inspired by the dynamism of water moving inside of a cave. This project was perfectly aligned with the Roca product style, but focused on wellness-related products linked to water usage. In the top of the floor spa of the 1000 Museum here in this picture, you can see that we work on obtaining the highest standards of well-being, designing a space that could make responsible use of water. For this room, extensive computational design and data fabrication research was applied to shape the wave-looking shell structures that you can see here. The design team used robots for bending the metal and achieved this complex shape that looks like a water wave. On another side, on another scale, we have the London Aquatic Centre. And here, water was not only a source of inspiration, but also was a resource that was treated carefully to meet all the requirements defined by the UK sustainability standards. As you can see, the fluid wave-like roof geometry extends beyond the glass facade envelope, maximizing the area for rainwater capture. The center's brief included really strict requirements to achieve the 2012 Olympic sustainability agenda, what allowed this building to achieve BREEAM excellent grade. The systems that allow the indoor comfort conditions in the swimming pool area were engineered to reduce the building carbon footprint below the standard baseline. Alternative energy systems were incorporated, connecting the building to a district heating and power grid, allowing to cut 30% of its carbon emissions. The Al Stadium was also another great example of showing how water can be used for something else, not only for creating a source of inspiration, but also as climating the interior of a building. The reason I choose this project is because the water here plays a crucial role on the outdoor comfort and wellness of the public sittings. And basically what we have underneath the seats is a cooling system with chill beams, that was applied to basically cool down the outdoor without wasting any water and to reduce energy compared to a normal air conditioning system for outdoor areas. And another side, we have Hamburg's riverfront promenade. But for instance, here, water has a different kind of meaning. So here we are talking about that the water was kind of connecting the promenade, creating an outstanding location for enjoying the views, but also in this case, the intervention helped to emphasize and protect the city from the fact of the flooding. So we have floodings here that are kind of like dangerous. So basically the connection here with the promenade was not only to show the views, but also to protect from the flooding risk that we're having in this location. Another project that was like talking about water connection, it was the Unicorn Master Plan in Chengdu in China. It was conceived to be integrated within a wetland area, working closely with landscape architects specialized in integrating local species. Thanks to this collaboration, we could strategize the best way to preserve and enhance the local natural assets and its connection to the surrounding waterscape. One of the common denominators of the master plans that we develop here is the usage of biofuels and rainwater collection systems. With them, we can control and harvest the runoff of water from the rainfall. This is crucial to achieve more self-sufficient architecture. This water that has been locally gathered can be used for irrigation and building services. At the same time, it helps on improving the outdoor comfort conditions. And that's very much from my side for this presentation. I'm looking forward to talk to you later.
Great. That's fantastic. Great to see a really great selection of projects there, Carlos. Thank you so much. It's nice to see things at a real selection of scales. I guess my first question for you before we move on to see any of the other presentations is, I think it's really interesting. Obviously, these kind of organic forms have been such a kind of huge part of Zaha Hadid Architecture's practice for so long. And it's really interesting because it allows you to create sort of very unusual forms, but actually it's sort of now we're sort of starting to think about wellness and the benefits of biophilia. These sort of ideas of organic forms actually start to sort of have more resonance. Like, do you think when you're sort of developing designs, like, do ideas of wellness come into the way that you design buildings in those early stages, or sort of when you're kind of, initially kind of form finding?
I think it's a very good question. If you look at the sustainability certificates and all the sustainability principles, what we're trying to do is trying to kind of improve the connection that we're having with the local environments and trying to mimic more naturally what we're doing artificially. So I think if you must to create like a connection in between the two worlds, the natural environment that we are like, all connected to, and the artificial one, you're going to improve significantly all the conditions for the people and for the end users. That at the end of the day is what matters. So when you're creating architecture, you really need to focus on creating solutions that are going to improve the life and the well-being of the people inside of the buildings or the spaces. So I feel like exploring this kind of biophilic connections and exploring all this sort of linked with natural environments, and especially with water, it has only positive impacts. So that's what I feel like this company has, like a great potential on the way that we are kind of designing here, is because you are kind of having this sort of freedom. You can more easily connect to nature, and you can kind of link nature with every single kind of gesture of geometry that you're doing. I think something that we are doing within the sustainability team is really trying to help the teams to unify this approach to this kind of connection with this biophilia and also with all the natural resources. And we're trying to create more efficient geometries. And well, the team was kind of set up quite recently. I think we have been around the business for around not even like a year, but it's been like kind of like substantial, the amount of impact that we have had inside of the company. And we are very happy that all together we can, unify the strategies to deliver very interesting proposals to our clients.
Interesting. And the other question I had for you is, you mentioned sort of thinking about water use, and it kind of got me thinking about how, I guess, in terms of sort of sustainability strategy, I think most architects or people in the industry be familiar with the ideas of sort of grey water and ways of kind of being a bit more sustainable with water use. But how have those kind of technologies developed? Like in what kind of ways are you able to really sort of significantly decrease a building's water use?
I mean, it's something that we're trying to kind of, our push is to try to create more self-sufficient architectures. And nowadays, what we need to do is to focus on creating what is called these net zero architectures. Something that is using its own resources in a way that they're always kind of in a closed loop. So if we manage to locally gather water, recycle it, and basically reuse it all over the kind of cycles that are possible, we are going to have like a building that's going to be way more efficient. And we really work a lot with engineers, and we are kind of coordinate efforts in between the architects and the engineers that are kind of working for us in order to achieve this sort of solutions. So in the last years, I think like the conversation of creating very efficient buildings has been like all over the place, and it's really important to focus on that thing. And we are kind of looking for it internally to create solutions that can help to achieve this sort of resource management. And also with the idea of capturing from the location or whatever is brought like from the grids is being reused as many times as possible. And I think also we play as a very important role is the one from the manufacturers and the people that's kind of providing us solutions. Because basically at the end of the day, what we're doing is kind of we're choosing what's available on the market to place inside of our buildings. So all these efficient fixtures, efficient systems for dealing with water are quite important nowadays for architecture. And for our practice, especially, is something that we're stressing a lot, to have like these very efficient solutions that can meet all the requirements from the different sustainability certificates.
Interesting stuff. Great. Let's move along to Woon Ho. Maybe you can show us your presentation now.
Sure. Thank you. Okay. All right. Here goes.
Great.
So what we would like to talk about actually is what we're trying to do at Banyan Tree. We are on this mission to what we call democratize well-being. And to do that, we are actually putting nature at the center of it. We strongly believe that our well-being, our individual well-being, is inextricably linked to nature. And there is a way to harness nature, its resources and its availability and its elements, including water, to improve one's well-being. So biophilic space is definitely one area we are looking at. I think this is an area that we don't need much elaboration. People are very clear about how being close to nature can impact their well-being, but we're expanding the conversation to talk about not just biophilic space, but salutogenic spaces whereby inspired using nature, whether it is light, it is the circulation of the air, to improve our guests and our staff's well-being. So what we're trying to do right now is through our own in-house designs, come up with structures and policies and guidelines to guide our future designs of hotels and resorts so that they improve the well-being, not just of our guests, but also for our staffs that's working down there. So sustainability has always been our core. So the key thing is to raise that awareness. My main concern as a hotelier or in this field of well-being is generally when we talk about well-being, it is only about the individual, and they rarely talk about how even protecting nature, conserving, and even, should I say, restoring nature is so critical towards our well-being. So we are advocating that shift in paradigm. We are pushing that conversation through among our internally and also among our guests. So this is a particular project I would like to share with you. We're developing our new project that's opening in Bausá, Bali. It is literally a wall-less villa. So guests have a chance to be really connected to nature. You probably don't see air cons, water conservation is recycled. So it is really our push towards this conversation of how we can bring back nature in harnessing nature for our guests' well-being. The next topic, if I may raise, is about this nocturnal connection. I think in today's world, we are so bombarded with so much light that we're kind of losing the rhythms, our connection, our detachment from the rhythms of nature. Lights are everywhere, you know, technology is luring us to stay awake 24/7. So I think from a design point of view, a design nocturnal space to promote a deeper state of rest. So what we're right now curating is what we call a weightless experience, harnessing water, the calming effects of water through weightlessness in pools that are warmed to mimic that state whereby you were once in the womb of your mother. And so studies have shown that weightless therapies like this are actually great, in fact, highly therapeutic for guests who have undergone stress and post-traumatic stress disorders. So we're incorporating that with the luxury, the fact that we run a lot of pool villas. So we have the advantage of being able to deliver this kind of experience for our guests. But we're going to push this further through designs and so forth. We hope to showcase more of this in the future. Now, one of our pillars of well-being is what we call learning and development. So besides rest, besides connection with nature, we feel that good designs can inspire, it can wow. And I think besides being amongst beautiful mountain sceneries, great oceans, that is highly therapeutic, I think as humanity, we have the wisdom, not just to harness it, but also elevate it. What nature has to offer. And we're always looking for people who can work with us to see how using light imaginatively can elevate, can inspire our guests' experience in our hotel. So lighting is definitely one area that we are looking at to see how to improve guests' well-being through inspiration and awe. Now, color therapy. I mean, it may seem 1965 to talk about this, but again, something I feel that it is overlooked. You know, I mean, lights is so important to us, and we all know that at different stages of light, it gives us different emotions and mood. But yet, why is it not being talked about? Why is it not incorporated to our lives? Maybe it's too easy, too simple. Maybe it's not commercially viable. So, well, on our case, we want to, like I said, we want to democratize it. We want to raise the awareness. So we want to explore all the possible options to empower our guests and our staff to find easy, accessible, and yet sustainable ways to improve their well-being. Not through pills and medications and high technology, but simple things that each of us can practice in our daily lives to improve our well-being. Last but not least, ironically, this is the entire white space you're looking here. You know, again, sensory overload. I think all around us, whether it's lights, whether it's design, whether it's advertisements, we're constantly bombarded. And we're seeing guests coming to us seeking space of solitude, sanctuary, a space of stillness, hoping to get away with all. And so we actually kind of created what we call this White Room. It is a space whereby we look at a so-called a total sensory detox, whereby you have no sensory stimulation, but only your mind. It can be quite intimidating, honestly, but I think after a while, when you get used to it, it can be really quite therapeutic to be free from all the stimulations, should I say, or even stress of life, and come to a space whereby you're totally detached and it's only you and yourself. I think that is one area that we are looking at in terms of designs to improve the well-being of our guests. That's it.
Thank you so much. That was really, really great to see, and especially to see some of your lovely spaces, which look incredibly, incredibly inviting. We know maybe you can, for those in our audience who aren't familiar with Banyan Tree, maybe you can tell me a little bit more about your background. Where did the company come from, and has this idea of well-being really been sort of central from the beginning, or is this something you've really learned over time?
Well, actually, Banyan Tree Hotels and Resorts is a public listed company in Singapore. We operate about 40 over resorts all around the world, all the way from Mexico to China. So it spans quite a bit across the world. And we operate high-end luxury resorts, Banyan Tree, and we have also other multitude of brands. The company was set up by our founders, Mr. Ho Kwong Ping and his wife, Ms. Claire Chiang. And it started with the premise whereby they're trying to create a space of sanctuary for romance. But both of them are, should I say, highly conscious about sustainability, about business being more than just business, but as an engine, as an advocate for good. Business should do good and not just do business. So since then, sustainability and wellness has always been the core of the company. But I was confessing to you guys earlier, I mean, so far for the last 2 decades, these two departments kind of like operate on its own. We have a director focusing on sustainability, working with us. We publish annual reports on sustainability every year. And then while we have this department called the Spa and the Wellbeing department, both works quite independently. But this year, we are now putting it both together. We realize that well-being, sustainability are interlinked, and that these two subjects should be advocated and talked about. I mean, how could we talk about elevating individuals' well-being if we ruin the environment around us? It's simply illogical. So that conversation has to come together. Yeah.
I really enjoyed that point you made, actually. This idea of like well-being is not just about individuals, it needs to be more wider. And does that create more challenges for you in terms of creating venues? Obviously, you've got to think about so many things, does sort of well-being of individuals versus well-being of nature, do you find there are clashes there, or do you find that those things really are in a lot of ways the same?
Well, I'm lucky. I guess I'm lucky. I work in a company that believes in both wholeheartedly, embrace it wholeheartedly. In fact, I was just in another conference earlier, and they were talking about well-being from career, from finance, from financials, things like that. And again, nature was totally neglected in their conversation, and I find it, to be honest, highly, highly disturbing. So it is not difficult for me. The company culture is totally supported. Unfortunately, among all our staff, we have been talking about it since day one. It's part of the orientation. Sustainability is the core. No second thing about it. So again, convincing our staff and educating them and finally putting it together was totally fine. I guess the challenge will come in educating our guests that well-being is more than just yourself. It is also about your relationship with others, your relationships with nature. So, but we truly believe in it. And that's why this year when we launched a concept called the Wellbeing Sanctuary with our 8 pillars of well-being, harmony with nature was one of its core pillars. And we're going to use that. We are lucky. I'm very lucky to have this platform to continuously push the language. And I'll find ways and means to push the shift in paradigm and to get this into the mainstream conversation. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm really enjoying hearing a little bit more from you a little later on, but we should probably move along as we make sure we can fit everything into our hour slot. So Ratish, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your work at Kohler and how these ideas fit into what you do.
Absolutely. Let me start by sharing my screen. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Great. So, for those of you who probably don't know us, so we're a global lifestyle brand, headquartered in North America, but we operate in pretty much every part of the world. And we're a global manufacturer of plumbing products, which is what many of you probably know us for, but we also are in the power systems and the hospitality businesses. And one thing that's common across all of our businesses is truly our mission of gracious living, which is about contributing to a higher level of gracious living for all of those consumers that use our products and services. And speaking of gracious living, we truly characterize it through a few different dimensions. And I'll give you some examples. So first is, really instilling this increased sense of well-being and comfort through our products and services, really echoing what Carlos and Woon were talking about. The second thing is art and design. We know that design matters to us and design matters to our consumers. So that really is a key area of focus for our product design teams. And then finally, a third attribute to that would be designing environmentally friendly products and services. So that, we truly believe that there doesn't have to be a compromise in terms of environmental favorability and function and aesthetics. So we think that there are ways, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, for how we can bring it all together and really deliver on the environmental promise without actually compromising on the function and the consumer experience. And all of this, we really call this our fundamental belief of believing in better, which is really about our best can always be better. And that really is the platform or the lens we use across the board for all of our environmental and social responsibility programming. So most of what I'm going to talk to you about next is really about believing in better and how we bring it to life through our different strategies. So what is believing in better, right? So it's really, like I said, it's the lens we use to make some of our strategic decisions in our businesses. And it's got three pillars: better planet, better communities, and better lives. Better planet is really our environmental sustainability strategy, right? So we focus on reducing our environmental footprint across our operations, but we also look at creating environmentally favorable product designs and launching them in the market. Better communities is really about supporting the growth and the economic development of our communities where we live and operate around the world. And better lives is really our strategies that help us improve people's lives by bringing them access to some very basic human needs like safe water, safe drinking water, safe sanitation, and hygiene, which I'll show you in a little bit is a dire problem in the world. So, like I said, this really is the umbrella strategy or the philosophy that we operate with to really make some of our key decisions in the business. Specific to Better Planet, so little over a decade ago, we launched our environmental sustainability goals. And two of them specifically were around net zero 2035. So we committed to driving to net zero greenhouse gas emissions across all of our operations by 2035. And also zero waste to landfill across our operations by 2035. So those are some bold goals and ambitious goals that we committed to back in 2008. And as you can see from the numbers here, we're making tremendous progress against that. The other thing that I want to emphasize, especially kind of building on what Carlos was talking about with water, one of the other elements of our commitment in 2008 was around designing environmentally favorable products. And one of the key areas of focus for us from an innovation standpoint is water and water efficiency. right? We're a plumbing company, and our products use a lot of water. So it is important, it is fundamental to us that we drive innovation in the area of water efficiency and really design our products in a way that they use less water without actually compromising on the performance or the consumer experience of it. So one data point I can point out here from this slide is the 292 billion gallons of water saved over the last few years through our water efficient products in the market, just in North America. Speaking of water, more, we've, this has been near and dear to my heart. We've always thought about transformational change as something that we cannot do ourselves, and we know that we've driven a lot of water efficiency innovation in our product across our product lines, but we know we need to do a lot more than that, and that's one of the reasons we were one of the founding members of the 50-liter home coalition last year. And so we're partnering with like-minded corporations like Procter & Gamble, Electrolux, and a few others, and some civil society organizations and nonprofits. And we're all coming together in this coalition with the goal of really introducing innovations in the marketplace that can help drive residential water use down to 50 liters per person per day. Now, just for some context, just in parts of North America, the residential water use could be over 200 liters per person per day, in some cases. And so reducing that to 50 is a pretty dramatic decrease. So it's going to require some systemic innovation and some transformational changes in how we deliver water across the bathroom and the kitchen spaces, and how people use and interact with their products and appliances in those rooms. So a lot of exciting stuff here. Another key element that I want to touch on is from our Better Planet strategy is our design for environment method. So this is something that we introduced a few years ago, and this is a data-driven decision-making tool that really allows us to apply design for environment thinking across the entire product life cycle of a product design process. And what happens from that is we empower project teams to think about, to make design decisions for the product that are favorable for the environment without actually making a significant trade-off when it comes to functionality or performance or even aesthetics. So this is what I was talking about earlier, is this is one of the key enablers for how we can embed sustainable thinking into our product design. And like the slide says, over 80% of the lifetime impacts of products are determined during the product development phase. So design for environment and integrating design for environment as a method in our product development process is really a key enabler for designing environmentally favorable products. Moving on to our Better Communities strategy. So this is really, like I said, a heavy focus on driving education, health, and well-being for folks that live and work in the communities where we operate. And as you can see, we make a pretty serious investment on an annual basis to make sure that that is taken care of. And we work, just like the 50-liter home concept, we work with a wide variety of partners to really make that happen. Another really interesting program is our Safe Water for All project. This is part of our Better Lives pillar. This is an interesting program because it really is at the intersection of three interesting things for us. First is really capturing the passion that our associates have on this topic of bringing safe water to underserved communities around the world. Second is really our strength, right? So we're a water company. We know how to deliver water graciously to our consumers. So we know a little bit about that. And then the third thing is really about this dire need out there. Over a third of the population in the world really does not have access to safe sanitation and water. So how do we make sure that we bring in some innovation to help solve that problem? So Safe Water for All really allows us to bring all of those facets together through some of our innovation. And we have a dedicated team called Innovation for Good that is focused on bringing solutions to market that address the Safe Water for All problem. And we also work with our teams around the world on what we call water impact projects. What those are basically, our teams do an intervention in a community that has a problem or that has a unmet need with safe water. And then we really, we institutionalize a solution, and then we go back to that community and measure the impact of what we did over time, and then report it. And that's really what helps us propel the measurement forward. The other part of Better Lives is the Innovation for Good incubator program that I talked about. And part of that is this thing called the iPrize that we introduced a few years ago. Think of this as our internal Shark Tank, where we really invite all of our associates across the globe to pitch their ideas on certain specific topics. And then we pick the top ideas every year, and then we fund them, and we coach those teams to further develop their ideas over the next year. Again, with the goal of transitioning those ideas into commercialization through our businesses over time. So you can see on the slide, just in the 2 or 3 years that we've been around, the impact that we made is tremendous. This is an really interesting project, Waste Lab. This is something that came out of our Innovation for Good incubator as well. So what we do here is we take our industrial waste streams from our ceramic pottery manufacturing processes and convert it into high-end, beautiful looking tile that you see here. So again, something that is really innovative and bold. This is a small operation over in Wisconsin, but what we're trying to do is develop a blueprint that we can then apply to all of our largest manufacturing facilities around the world. And finally, I'll just close with this. I mean, this matters because it matters to all the people that we work with. Consumers that buy our products and use our products on a daily basis really care for this. Our employees, the people that work on these projects every day, really care for this and want to come to work fired up every morning because of this reason. And then, even outside the company, this is meaningful for the people that believe in the cause that we do, which is truly believing in better and the fact that our best can always be better. So that's all I had.
Great. Thank you so much. That was really interesting to hear. And I think I really like this point that you kind of made early on about this sort of idea that, like, when it comes to sort of creating more responsible products, it doesn't have to be about compromise. And then that's I think that's nice that tied in with what you were talking about there at the end. Is it seems to me that, there's a market out there that is really, wants products that are more responsible. And it's not just about sort of saying, you have to have, a shower that has less pressure because it's better for the environment. It's saying, like, we can use these values to create better products. How important is that kind of, I guess, that kind of groundswell of people kind of demanding better? That must really drive you forwards.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. And that's, going back to the 50-liter coalition I was talking about. One of the things about the 50-liter project that is a goal for us is, as our friends from P&G would say, making 50-liter home feel like a 500-liter home, right? So it is really not about compromise. It is about adding value. So it is important to us. And to your question about demand, yes. I mean, that's, if consumers see that there is a trade-off, if you're buying a water efficient plumbing product, but if they notice that it comes with a significant trade-off in performance, they're not going to buy it. I mean, so this is really, that's the motivator for our innovation teams, is how do you continue to deliver that performance and maintain that level of experience without compromising on the environmental piece.
And without kind of getting too far into the tech behind things, I mean, how do you do that? Like, what kind of technologies allow you to kind of create these incredibly sort of water efficient products? You sort of said these big numbers of savings. I mean, that's incredible that you're able to kind of bring technology in order to kind of create products that are just as good, but it saves so much water. Maybe you can go into a little bit more detail.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to the design for environment concept that I was talking about. That really is one of the enablers for that. And what that is it's a process, right? So what it does is it allows project teams, product development teams, to really open up their thinking, and they're questioned at the beginning of the project phase on, hey, what are all the characteristics you're trying to deliver to the consumer? And then, have you thought about this? Have you thought about the materials that go into this? Have you thought about what happens to the waste? Have you thought about how you can deliver the same experience with less water? So it's just, it goes through a series of questions that challenges the teams to think beyond how they're typically thinking. And then, speaking of technology, we've we've been in the plumbing business for over 100 years now, and it's we've got some toileting platforms and shower heads that perform really well, and we've gained expertise in development of those over years. So we've got a solid group of engineers and product developers that take pride in that area. So, like I said, I think just building on that tribal knowledge and then using techniques like design for environment really allows us to take that step forward.
Amazing. Well, I think now we're going to kind of open this up and sort of start a little bit more of a group discussion here about some of these topics. There's quite a lot within what we've all just seen to explore. So I think I'm going to sort of start by, I guess, maybe a kind of general question, and we can maybe go around in turn, or if someone feels they want to sort of jump in right away, please go ahead. But I guess the question I guess I'd like to sort of start with is kind of how can, looking forward, we've got a great audience of like architects and designers watching today. How can architecture and design promote wellness generally, going forward? Maybe Carlos, maybe you want to start.
Sure. Well, I think from the perspective of what we do here in the office, I feel like everything is about center on the end user. So we are trying to always develop solutions that can be not only interesting from a design perspective, but also that they have like a solid background in terms of how we are going to achieve that thing. So actually we do lots of work that from a kind of analytic perspective. So in that way we can emphasize how the design is actually going to achieve the things that we are kind of trying to promote initially. So it was all kind of like a kind of process. The design process basically is kind of taking into account like several kind of strategies. So we put them on the table, we start thinking about it. And then later is how can you, with analysis, you help to make that thing happen. And then later on a further stage after you have to kind of develop the concept, you talk with engineers, and with that way, you can really create a product or like a space or like a building or even like a public space that can really promote wellness from this kind of approach, holistic approach that is taking into account so many factors. So I think it's kind of like very, very interesting because the way that this company is creating buildings with these organic shapes, it allows a lot of freedom. So you can tackle from many different perspectives the concept of wellness by, linking into the design different aspects like, for example, light, water, air. You're trying to improve the comfort all the time with the solutions that you are creating here. And we're trying to create like a unified kind of strategy. But the outcome in terms of shape can be completely different. But the tools and basically the mechanisms that are kind of allowing us to make this sort of buildings with this kind of end result at the end of the day, touching the wellness area, is basically I was kind of like following this kind of common denominator of workflows and processes that are kind of allowing us to achieve these kind of products that are kind of outstanding from the perspective of design, from the aesthetics. But at the same time, when you're kind of like looking inside of the technical aspects, they're kind of meeting all the requirements of all the locations, and they're meeting all the expectations of the end users and the clients that we are basically working for.
Woon, I don't know whether you want to sort of add a little bit more, obviously from your perspective, when you're kind of creating, new destinations, how are you sort of thinking about how they promote sustainability and wellness, sort of the idea of like a healthy building?
Well, again, we're lucky. We operate luxury resorts in most of the most naturally beautiful destinations like the one you see. Nature itself elevate your well-being without even you realizing it. I mean, looking at the beautiful scenery, the sense of awe, looking at the beautiful ocean, that sense of peace, all this already contribute to your well-being. But I think if I may hope to see is, I think when it comes to architects and designs, perhaps being aware of what constitutes your well-being. Today, I mean, if you ask anyone, right, what is well-being, you'll probably get a million different permutations of answers. Nobody really have clarity on it, on what does it really entails. So last year, we tried to address that. So last year, we did a global survey of our 6,400 associates worldwide. And we discovered that some of the most fundamental things are being neglected, like sleep, quality sleep, physical vitality, the movement, and even nutrition, things counting to eat. I mean, I'm not sure how a great design or a great building could facilitate it, but I kind of had an inkling, right? Like, for example, if there's going to be a communal dining space, surely there should be ample lights, places for connection and bonding. And in between workspace, if someone needs to take a power nap, there should be spaces like that for staff to enjoy it, and rather than to slog it through. And then even physical vitality, right? Instead of doing flat spaces, encourage movements, be up or down, gradual spaces to get the body moving, you know. I mean, I always believe that to promote well-being, it cannot be something that is miserable. It cannot be tedious. It's got to be fun. It's got to be enjoyable, you know. That's how you sustain the practice, right? It is not like I lost 5 kilos and that's it, I'm well, but no, it's not. It is a sustained lifelong practice. So if designs could be incorporated in such a way that you allow the consumers, the users, to be able to do it on a regular, easy, and joyous basis, and I think this is what I really look for. Yeah.
We think I guess we're talking about experiences here, aren't we? It's not just about how something looks. It's how it's kind of, you know, some of the things you showed in your presentation, Woon, it's very much about giving someone an experience of wellness in a space is what kind of can really kind of promote these ideas.
That's right. And ultimately, if this is pre-designed, like for example, I mean, if the company is going to design a pantry, please design it big and large, ample light, lots of greenery that people can gather. In fact, when it comes to like even office spaces, right? I mean, the tendency is always the management gets the windows, while the junior and the middle management don't get the light. But I think that should not be the case. Everybody should have access to the light. It cannot be the exclusive of the seniors, of the senior management. So I think things like that, considerations, being conscious about it, knowing that what we need as a human being, and bringing nature to an office design, can help everyone in their daily practice of well-being.
Yeah. And Ratish, I imagine sort of from your side, this idea of experiences, you know, I mean, we're talking about water here, experiences with water probably play a lot into how you kind of develop products and the kind of ideas that you kind of process on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think going back to what Woon was saying, I mean, I think the choices we make each day in the products we buy really talk about what well-being means to us and how we want to interact in the space and how we want the products to really be a part of that space. So yes, so I think, and that goes back to the comment I made earlier of, you know, consumers are making a conscious choice these days, and you know, selecting products that are environmentally friendly gives them a real sense of doing good, and that sense of doing good really positively impacts their sense of well-being. So that there's a strong connection there.
And I mean, the sort of talking about water and this sort of relationship between water and wellness is obviously sort of our topic. I wonder if we could talk a little bit about designing good, I guess we say water buildings, you know, spas, swimming pool, bathhouses, something that, you know, you're probably all three of you are all very familiar with. Maybe you can each tell me a little bit about what really makes, you know, when you're in design terms, what makes a good kind of building for water that is, you know, whether incorporating water or in water, on water. Do you like to go first, Ratish, maybe? You are nodding.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I can give you the manufacturer's perspective on that. Absolutely. So, you know, so it's, like I said, I think the space and the environments where we operate really has a profound impact on our sense of well-being. And I think water, because it's so fundamental to our products, that is key to delivering that sense of well-being and that experience. And we basically operate within two major spaces of a home, so bathroom and the kitchen, right? And Kohler has a long-standing dedication to providing enhanced health and hygiene to our customers, and that really from the very first bathtub that we introduced over 100 years ago to some of our most recent technology, of touchless products, where those products are hygienic and only use the right amount of water needed for the job. So we think that designing not just water efficient fixtures, but also designing smarts into our fixtures so that it actually enables that feeling of well-being, clean, and hygienic delivering that hygienic experience to the consumer is really key, and that's something that we can enable as part of as being a product manufacturer in this space.
Carlos, maybe you want to also add to this one.
Yeah, I think like, well, I can talk from two perspectives, the design perspective and more like the environmental perspective. I think from the design perspective is key to always kind of like, because the way you get into a building and you experience water is very sensory. So it's kind of like each one of your senses can experience water in a different way. So I feel like all the designers were kind of always trying to find this connection that's going to make the space better through the way that we are going to experience the water. So it could be like a visual connection where you have the water body nearby your building that's going to improve the quality of your views, that's going to improve the kind of like the landscape kind of perception that you're going to have there. And basically, I'm kind of like with Woon here. So the idea of getting better connection with the light, with the visual. So the water has like an impact on all these things because it's kind of changing a lot of things from the perspective, from the reflection levels that you're going to have in the environment that can create like a total different experience. If you're talking about interiors, even like the way you're feeling like the thermal comfort inside of a space, the way you're kind of like feeling the water is going to change completely your perception of the space. And I feel like all the designers here and all the design teams that we have, they're really taking care of studying how the water is going to be perceived and how is it going to be the end user connected to the relationship that they're going to have with the water. So like, I feel like even the way you're treating the interiors to contain this water is going to have a total impact on the perception of these spaces and totally is going to have an impact on the wellness. So it's kind of like a very interesting approach because it can be like extremely scientific or extremely technical, but also can be extremely artistic. So from the perspective of how you're kind of dealing with the kind of like sound perception of the water, you have something like running water or you have like static water, it's going to change completely the way you are kind of behaving inside of this space. So I feel like we look at that thing from this kind of all perspective together to understand exactly what we want to achieve, what's the effect that we are interested to achieve in a space. Shall we do it through by modifying the conditions on the interior, so the water is going to play a role on modifying those conditions, or shall we make it just only from kind of like a visual connection with the water? I mean, if I go into the environmental aspects, obviously this kind of like changing all your thermal perception, that the water that you're having in a space is going to control all these kind of levels of comfort that you're going to have inside of a space. So if you're able to assess how the weather is going to help you to improve the indoor conditions of a space, you're going to have like a much better impact on the end user, on the person that are kind of like enjoying this space. So I feel like if you look at this spa space, it's like the connection with the light, basically triggering different reactions inside of your body and inside of your brain. So the light connected with all this kind of perception of the water is going to trigger like a total like different perception there. So I feel it's kind of like a very interesting approach, and from each one of these perspectives, you merge them together. And at the end, you can end up having like a very interesting product. And Zaha Hadid has been doing this kind of studies for a long time, even before I arrived here, in order to use the water to improve and enhance the interior or the architectural experience that you're going to have on a space. I think that, for example, in the area that Woon is kind of working, they're taking it to the next level. But inside of the perspective, from the perspective of designers, we are kind of working with specialists in many different kind of areas in order to improve and enhance this kind of wellness experience. So we can deliver something that is not only like a beautiful image, but it's something that's going to really have an impact in the way it's expected, creating something very interesting.
Yeah, that's a really great point. We've got a couple of questions coming in from the audience, so I'm going to maybe turn to one of these. There's a really great one here. I'm not sure if this is to anyone in particular, but I think it's a good general one that maybe hopefully you can all have some input on. The question is, how can these concepts of water and well-being influence spaces, particularly sort of following the pandemic? How can these concepts propel our understanding of space after the pandemic? He'd like to go first.
Well, can I?
Please.
Yes, I mean, I think post-pandemic, the need for privacy, the need for safety, that your own space, own cocoon, own sanctuary, it's going to be more than ever before. I mean, I think so. Having your own space where you connect, whereby you enjoy the therapeutic effects of water on you, on your well-being, will be key. And I'm not saying this simply because I have piles of pool villas. I'm honestly not saying that. I'm like I said, our rooms are really pool villas, enclosed sanctuaries on its own. But we really do notice that. I mean, right now in Thailand, in Phuket, where we have our flagship properties are, we're doing well because many guests are looking for that privacy and looking for that space whereby they can connect with water, connect with nature in their own safe environment. So I think that will be key. But of course, the key will be next question will be, how do we make sure that there's conscious conservation of it? So over here, what we do is water is not just being treated, it's treated to go back to nature, whether it's for watering the huge gardens that we have, recycling for whatsoever. We do make a conscious effort to make sure that the waters are constantly being upcycled and recycled.
Great. Carlos, do you have any thoughts on this topic, on this question?
I think like Zaha has been working during this pandemic. We have been trying to implement like different kind of workflows that can help to improve the spaces towards, creating like a sense of protection from all these pandemic situations. I think like the connection with water here could be quite an interesting one to study about. Probably we didn't kind of like link it directly, the sense of security with the connection with the water there, but definitely the way that you're treating the interiors of the spaces is kind of like really connected to the ventilation corners or the kind of systems that you're having inside of your building to improve this sort of wellness, because when you feel like you are secure, obviously you improve your wellness perspective. And I feel like the connection here could be something to really work on, because it's something like a topic on its own that could be like really interesting to connect with the usage of water for creating maybe secure distancing in order to just use the water as an element of the design that can help you to create this connection and separation from the people that you have in there, but a visual connection that you are still in the same space. I feel like all this pandemic is kind of bringing new parameters for the design perspective. So I feel like, well, given the nature of this company, it's all about kind of parametric and computational design. These parameters started to affect the way that we are kind of delivering the interior spaces that we are creating in the company. So when you look at office spaces and when you look at residential spaces, they have like total different treatments. And especially in the office spaces, we have like a team that's kind of working on how to create like better interior subdivisions that can, improve the sense of security and also like the real feeling that you are going to be like protected from, keeping this distance, for having like social distance that is going to keep you protected and away from, catching these diseases around. So it cannot change like completely the way that we're doing things before and the way that we're doing it right now. And I feel like introduce like a new parameters and new thoughts on how can we really improve those spaces to really create this that at the same time could be connected to water in another level. I think it's like a very interesting topic that definitely we are going to keep developing over the years and over the time, just to improve and get like better results at the end of the day on that thing. But yeah, that will be that.
Great. Ratish, do you have any thoughts on sort of a use of water and wellness post-pandemic and how things are going to change?
Yeah, absolutely. The couple of themes that we've seen emerge coming out of the pandemic. One is a renewed sense of clean and hygiene, focus on clean and hygiene, right? Which we all know about. And then the other thing is really this sense of accountability that consumers are trying to show with water conservation and climate change. And when we think about these themes, one fundamental thing that could help enable all of that is water and water technology, especially for us from a manufacturer's perspective. So, we're challenging ourselves and our teams to start to think about how can we deliver water differently through our products in a way that we conserve them and reuse them, right? We talked about the 50-liter home coalition. How can that enable some of those solutions? And also hygienic practices, right? So smarts, touchless products or products that really are in sync with the usage of the consumer, water monitoring, leak detection, and that sort of thing. I mean, all of that is starting to get some prominence coming out of the pandemic. And we feel like those are all just tremendous opportunities for us in terms of innovation and bringing in water as the enabling factor to deliver those experiences.
Fantastic. That was really, really interesting to hear as well. I think that's all we've got time for today. That hour is absolutely breezed by. But I guess I'd like to just take the opportunity to say thank you to all the speakers. You've all been fantastic, and it's been really great to hear your thoughts. I'm personally going to have a little bit of a dig deeper into some of these ideas later. So Carlos, Woon, Ratish, thank you so much. And also thank you to Kohler for hosting this talk with us. That's all from me. Thanks so much. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.